When I go back and watch like my first videos, it's so cringe.
You've got this big narrative of going, I want to get more men into the kitchen.
So there's a lot of men out there that can cook.
You got a bunch of content that's thirst traps for girls.
You know, being physically fit and then baking all these treats.
You know, you get your shirt off a lot, like you do a lot of funny stuff.
People are going to criticize you no matter what you do.
You know, like it's an attractive thing for the opposite sex.
You know, people see in my baking videos that he looks fit.
Today's guest, Daniel Rankin, otherwise known as Man Can Cook, started off trying to convince men that they can cook too and show another side of the male experience, but he does it with his shirt off. Does that diminish his authority and his image, or is it a way to attract new audiences, to get a wider reach, to convince more people? Anyway, we'll find out today on today's episode of Stansplaining. Welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself and we'll get into it?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. My name's Dan. I create content on Instagram and TikTok. I don't refer to myself as a content creator, more of a baker. But yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said to you off camera, I want to start back where you started this, right? But before we get into that, I just want to get a little bit spicy at the beginning, right? Because like I've been doing some research before we got into here to know. I know you a little bit beforehand because we've talked. But me and Mal were trying to find an angle to talk about. And there was something that was like pressing on me because you've got this big narrative of going, I want to get more men into the kitchen, right? And get them into cooking. There's a narrative that we've seen that you've sort of pushed on some places about trying to inspire men to cook. But then like you got a bunch of content that's thirst traps for girls.
Yeah.
So like tell me like how does that marry up? Like I want to know like what's your reasoning behind that? Because it's interesting and I don't think you're wrong, but I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I guess when I first started creating content, it was a lot different to the type of content I'm creating now. I started in 2014 on YouTube, and back then I felt like the stigma that men can't cook was prevalent back then, which is why I came up with the name Man Can Cook. So it was back in 2014, and I think throughout the years, that's not relevant anymore. Like I know a lot of men that can cook, and a lot of amazing world-class chefs and men. So there's a lot of men out there that can cook. So throughout the years, it's kind of changed, and I guess Man Can Cook is just singular, like man. Man can cook now. Yeah. So that's how it's changed over the years. Yeah.
And so from you as a narrative, like that, it's not as big of a narrative that you push anymore for that man, like inspiring men to cook?
Nah, not really.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah.
I think there's a juxtaposition in my content of, being a male, I guess, being physically fit and then baking all these treats that probably provides a engagement value there.
Yeah. It is interesting, because like when you do research, your brand out online still portrays, like there's still a lot of like remnants of this inspiring men to cook out there, which is kind of interesting because that's what we're looking into. And I don't know if I found it interesting because I didn't think I saw that from your content. Yeah. And I just wanted to ask, like, what is it? So then it kind of tells me then where you started, which is good. That's a good segue. So 2014, you started in YouTube.
Yeah, I started on YouTube.
And what was that like? Tell me that journey. Why did you do that? Where did that come from?
Like cooking's always, it's always been a part of me. It's always been a part of my life. And it's kind of never been the thing that, that I do. It's always just been in the background. And yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to shoot a cooking video, and I had a mate who knew how to use a camera and knew how to edit. I had no idea how to do that. So we linked up and we shot like 3 or 4 episodes for YouTube. Yeah. There was a lot more dialogue, a lot of me talking, and hey, these are the ingredients you need, this is what you got to do. But it was a lot of effort. It was like a lot of work filming that stuff. So I wasn't very consistent with it, and then dropped off the long form videos, and then just started, posting simple recipes onto my stories. Yeah. I never chucked it up onto, a reel or a video on Instagram. Yeah. And then lockdown came around, so I used to own a business. It was a gym.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Yeah.
It was a functional fitness CrossFit gym. Yeah. So I owned that for about 6 years. Yeah. And I owned it throughout lockdown. So when lockdown happened, I wanted to kind of teach my members how to create, healthy meals throughout lockdown. Yeah. And it was a stressful time. Yeah. So I was like, how can I make them laugh? Or I'll chuck an outfit on Fraser and and chuck him on the table, because he's always there in the kitchen with me. He's always staring at me. Yeah. So I just chucked him up there, put an outfit on him, and created some healthy recipes for the members, and they enjoyed it. Yeah. But even then, there was a lot more dialogue, and it took me a long time to film one video. And like being so busy with the gym, I needed to find a way to make it more sustainable for myself. So I kept Fraser in there, kept the outfits on them, and then came up with these kind of 45 seconds to 1 minute videos without any kind of dialogue in it. Just like fun baking. And I learned how to use a camera because of the business. So throughout owning the business, I just went and bought like, a Sony A7 III, and then learned how to use it, learned how to edit, watched like tons of YouTube videos. And then, throughout the years, I just got better. And I think when it came to that point, I was like, I'm just going to shoot my own cooking content and edit my own cooking content. So that's the story.
That's actually quite interesting. I'm going to jump on that, like using the real camera that you use, because you obviously, I see your content. Did you always shoot it on the Sony for the short form videos at the beginning? Because I don't know if I've watched back in 2020, 2021. Always.
I've been using the same camera since
love that.
Like 2021, I think, when I started, or 2022.
2021. That's good, because it's like it wasn't normal at the time then, right? For those short form video platforms.
Exactly.
Yeah. What made you make that decision? Just because you knew how to use it?
Yeah, because I knew how to use it, and I knew a lot of people didn't know how to use it. And I was like, I just felt it'll be higher quality. Rather than an iPhone. And I had an old iPhone when I started creating content. Like, I can't remember what type, but it was terrible. So there was no way I could use an iPhone, and I didn't want to buy a new iPhone. But I had a good camera, so
I think it's quite interesting, because like the content's definitely moved to that way. Like everyone started off pretty lo-fi, but like there's still obviously lots of lo-fi. But now like you're seeing so much more. As soon as the YouTubers hit TikTok and figured out short form video, and they bought the quality that they knew how to do. But you're already there, so that's pretty fucking cool.
The thing is there's so many content creators out there, and then there's so many content creators showcasing a very similar message or a very similar service or offering. And if you put a creator who's offering the same thing using low quality camera gear, like an iPhone, for example, but iPhone these days is pretty good, and then like high quality piece of content, most likely they're going to be more engaged into the high quality piece of content.
That's interesting. What okay, there's so much I still want to unpack, and I'm probably going to jump around a bit here, so
no, that's a good
with me, because it's living, like you did this in New Zealand, and like your content is pretty, like it's pretty, you get your shirt off a lot, like you do a lot of funny stuff, and you're like pretty much like it's a whole character that you have played. It's also not normal for people in New Zealand to do something like that. Like, there's not a lot of creators who are getting to that level. Globally, yes. But in New Zealand, like, people are too shy, too scared. Like, they're not. Especially, men. Especially. Like, what gave you that confidence? I mean, I know you weren't born here, but you're raised here, right? Like, is that right?
I was raised in Timor.
Raised in Timor.
I moved over when I was 16.
Got it. Okay, other way around. Yeah,
but I've been here for a while now.
Yeah. So, how did you have the confidence to do that when no one else around you would have been doing that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I was definitely nervous posting my first video out. And when I go back and watch like my first videos, it's so cringe. But, like I went through a really tough patch before I started creating content. I went through, quite a bad breakup. And I guess I kind of just went on this journey of self-growth and, worked on myself quite a lot, went to therapy, read books and stuff, and then just found like this sense of confidence and vulnerability that, I really don't care what people think of me anymore. Whereas most of my life, I was worried what people would think of me, or was worried what I'd do would be wrong, or, the type or my values were incorrect. And I think that journey of self-growth kind of just led me to vulnerability, and then throughout that I was able to just express myself naturally and how I wanted.
That's real interesting. Like, what was the turning point there? That's quite a big shift in having that ability to not care what other people think. Like, most people can't make that switch, that stage of life. Like, it's real hard. Like, it's baked into them. They care what people think about. Like, what was it? What do you remember, like, the moments or like the things that like were the clicking moments that allowed you to do that?
I think it definitely wasn't a switch.
It
was,
of course.
It was like a grind of working for myself. I was I was pretty down, in a bad place, and then I kind of leaned on exercise. I owned a gym, so I leaned on my community, friends and family, and just started reading a lot. I think before that, I suppressed a lot of emotions. So I think growing up in Samoa, and I think even, some men in New Zealand
Yeah.
suppress emotions as well, and
Yeah.
I think suppressed emotions resurface in like quite negative ways. So
Yeah.
I really worked on expressing emotions,
Cool.
and I think by posting these videos, I was maybe still suppressive, but it was practice.
Yeah.
And these videos allowed me to be expressive, and each
Okay.
video was like practice, 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 practice.
Yeah.
And, you know, eventually I got to the point where, cool, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Like I practiced so much that it just became natural
Yeah.
and comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's actually like super inspiring actually to hear that, because it's not a normal thing
Yeah,
to
thanks,
hear.
man. I don't
young
have a
men.
big New Zealand following
Yeah.
as well, so that's probably, probably
no.
why.
That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Like, and I think, like, how much do you talk about that journey and tell people?
Not much.
You know, like that's super inspiring.
yeah.
Like, especially for a young man to like, especially like, because you know, like, Cook Island and like in island culture, like you don't talk about.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
normal to talk about that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of men in New Zealand, both Māori and Pacifica, who like struggle with that sort of stuff. But that's pretty inspiring to hear. Like, I don't want to dig into the whole time. It was supposed to be a pretty somber podcast, but like,
Yeah.
I think it's something I'm going to hold on to at the moment a little bit, because I think it's like something people should think about. Like,
Thanks, man. Yeah. I do as well.
yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
What were some of the like books or like people or mentors or things that you saw that you recommend other people to like look into, maybe if they're starting a journey to figure this out?
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up, I didn't have like a solid mother figure. Like my mom wasn't around, and my grandma raised me, but she's, you know, a classic Samoan grandma, you know,
Yep.
just like gives you a hiding if you're out of line and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, just make sure that, you know, there's a roof over your head. But I guess in regards to like being emotionally available, she wasn't like that. And
Yeah.
so I guess when I went on this journey, like I started therapy and I started getting into Stoicism.
Yeah.
But then after reading a lot of Stoicism, I realized that a lot of the authors were like male men, and I was like, man, like I need to see a different perspective. I need to, you know, gather female or women's perspective.
Yeah.
So the first book I picked up was Brene Brown. So
Yep.
she's really amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
Gifts of Imperfection was definitely a great book for me.
Cool.
Glennon Doyle, I think.
Yep.
Untamed.
Yep.
It's a great book.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Oh, you went full.
Brianna Weist.
Yeah.
Weist? Yeah. 101 essays.
Yeah.
How to change your
You went
life.
straight into the
All-
as far
all
female
of
as
them,
you
bro.
can go. I love it.
Yeah. And then Florence Given.
Yeah.
Women Don't Know You're Pretty. So I like started reading all these books.
Yeah.
And I think, I just felt comfortable, and, you know, I was able to be a lot more vulnerable
Yeah.
after reading those. And especially in therapy, you express a lot. Yeah.
What would you
Yeah.
say, like, because, like, I mean, I've read a bunch of the books that you just
Oh, nice,
read
man.
as well, yeah. And,
Yeah.
like Untamed is a real interesting book as well. Like, and,
Yeah.
and Brene, I read a bunch of Brene's books as well. And, but, like, it's one of those things that, like, a lot of men will be like, oh, you puff. Like,
Yeah.
can't believe you read that, like, whatever, blah, blah. You know, there's just that stigma, right?
Yeah.
Around men reading that. And, like, actually, just getting even Pacifica men to read self-help books is probably a hard thing to do in the
Yeah.
first place, let alone a female-orientated one. Like, what would you say to people who are, like, saying that sort of stuff? Like, how do you convince them to go, bro, just give it a try? Like, what would you say? Like, what's saying out of those books? Anyone that you're like, this is what I learned, like, this is why it was so important.
Yeah, I'd probably be more curious
Yeah.
into their response. Like,
Yeah.
why do they think that, you know, men shouldn't read these books?
Yeah.
And then I'd probably base my response off of their answer. Like,
Mhm.
I think curiosity is important.
Yeah, cool.
People say things like that. I think a lot of times just the underlying reasons would probably be that they're, you know, suppressive. They've grown up their whole life with this ideology of masculinity. Masculinity being, you know, like men don't read those types of books, men don't cry, men don't share feelings, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I imagine that will be the
Yeah.
underlying cause of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. Okay, I'll get off that because we're here to talk about content creation.
That's okay.
But I find it real fascinating, and I've gone through similar like journeys in my life and I think it like helped me be the person I am today because of that reason. So okay, that tells me why you had the confidence to take your shirt off on camera, because it's like a big deal, and do the type of content you do. Not that that is everything, but like it is a big part that people are going to tap into. But then tell me, like, what I really want to know, or what the story I really want to get out from you is like, your brand is so brand friendly, and you've been able to like create a a brand that like one isn't localized to New Zealand, like it went global straight away. US as well, mainly, right? Yeah, but you're able to do it like and get quite decent brand deals from the last time I spoke to you about this. Like, how did you think about that, building that brand around it to like get it? Like, when was the moment you're like, oh, I need to do it this way, or oh, this is what brands are looking for? Like, when was that happen?
Yeah, I mean, when I started doing this type of content,
Yeah.
I had no goals.
Yeah.
You know, like I just wanted to create content, and I enjoyed it. And then after 3 videos, so after the third one with this style of content, you know, it went viral. It was like it was a Mexican song, a Tres Leches cake.
Yeah.
And that went viral. And then after those 3, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'm on to something.
Yeah.
And I still didn't have any aspirations. I just wanted to create more content. I wanted to cook more. And then eventually, I think I got my first brand deal, and I only probably had like 5,000 followers.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, I've got 5,000 followers. That's cool. And it was like $500 to create a video, and I was stoked.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It was like a Wheat Bix slice, for like sanitarium or something like that. And I guess after that, like each milestone or stepping stone, you set goals higher and higher. Like when I started, I didn't have a goal of like I wanted to reach 1 million followers.
Yeah.
My first goal was I wanted to make Fraser, my pug, the most famous pug in New Zealand. That was like my main goal.
Yeah.
And eventually, I feel like we've achieved that. And now, I guess when I hit like 100K, that's when I was like, okay, cool. Like this is growing, and it was growing consistently throughout the years. And more brands were reaching out, like well-known brands. So I was like, oh, okay, like this is a thing. If I just keep working on it, I still owned a gym full time, so it was quite hard to do that.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I only went full-time content creation probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
6 to 8 months ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but even before that, like I could have gone full-time probably a year ago.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that, but I was a little bit kind of afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, as a content creator, you rely on brand deals.
Yeah.
And if they're not, coming in regularly, you start to panic. And like, I started to build, a good buffer that, if I didn't get a brand deal for several months, it'd be sweet. So,
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Because obviously we talked a little while ago when we first spoke, and like you were still getting pretty decent brand deals back then. So it's actually it's so responsible. Like it's opposite of the podcast we did earlier this week, which was like almost more irresponsible in the financial sense of it.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting that like you held on to a job for so long.
Yeah.
Because I just want to know, like, when did the gym finish? Because then I also know that you worked for an agency for a bit as well.
Yeah.
So like, tell me that process. Like, how did that play out?
Yeah. So I owned the gym for 6 years, and probably my last 8 months of owning the gym. So I had a business partner, and like I decided to step out just so there was enough income for the business to really support one person and plus a coach. So I kind of stepped out of there, and then I worked for an agency for a bit. So I sold the gym about May last year.
Okay.
And then I went full time around August last year. So like my last 8 months of owning the gym, I was working for an agency, and I was still doing a lot of work for the gym. And then I was creating content on like on Saturday, Sunday. So it was like 7-day weeks, and I was just getting exhausted and burning out. And that's probably the time I experienced the least growth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
I just rushed the content a lot, and I was like tired.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer in consistency.
Yeah.
If I'm tired, I'll just, chill out 15 minutes and then get up and then get to work.
Yeah.
But in saying that, like, I didn't have much time, so yeah.
So it's just a bit like just not as much time, lack of effort.
Yeah, lack of effort. Yeah, I still put as much effort as I could with the energy I had.
Yeah. So less energy to be able to give enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, interesting. And that's so when you look back at that though, does it matter in the end, like that they were lower effort videos compared to the fact that you just got them out anyway? Like, you know what I mean? Like, would it have been better to have not done them and just done less videos to make them better? Or do you think it is actually, looking back at it, I'm glad I stayed consistent?
I'm glad I absolutely stayed consistent, because, it's still, like, I've posted a video every week, sometimes twice a week for like the last, I don't know, 2-3 years, which I'm quite proud of.
Yeah.
And I've been through, that time I've been stressed and
Yeah.
anxious and had heaps of different injuries and stuff like that. And then, but it's, I think, just putting in the work and being consistent is super important.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Why is consistent important for people listening? Because like some people would shoot you and say the opposite. They'll be like, "There's no way."
Yeah, I guess for me,
Yeah.
I mean, doing fitness my whole life, and especially owning a gym, I've seen people come through and they're like, yeah, I want to get fit. I've got these goals. And then they go hard for like, 2-3 weeks. And then they, burnt out or overwhelmed, and then they stop. So I've seen that a lot. And I think the people who kind of just put in a little bit of work, come in, maybe 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Don't go super hard, but
Yeah.
are super consistent. You see the most gains there. And I think that transfers to a lot of other aspects in life. You don't have to work super hard, but you need to work hard and consistent.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I love it. And
Yeah.
like, I'm obviously on the same page as
Yeah.
you. Like, I am a big believer in consistency all the time. Like, I'm like quality. I think consistency leads to quality anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I always tell our guys, like, doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Let's just do it. Build a process, build habits, do it all the time. And then it'll eventually catch up to where we want it to be.
Yeah.
But we actually don't know what that is now.
Yeah.
We actually don't know what good is, so let's just do something.
Yeah,
And
no,
let
I
momentum
agree
build.
there,
Okay, so it was actually a little bit of, so you weren't exactly wrong when you told me before that it was a bit of, I just figured it out as I did it.
Yeah.
But there was still some, like, you were a business owner.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know you at the
okay.
gym. I didn't realize that. And that makes me realize why, like, you figured it out so fast.
Yeah.
Because, like, that business owner's mentality is like, I did some stuff at work, this response happened, and therefore I adapted it to make it what it was.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
quite interesting. Tell me how was that time with the agency? Because like we're obviously an agency, we've got creators in our business, and I've seen other agencies do that, but like it's not for every creator to be in an agency environment because it's different. There's like rules and like things get in the way and all sorts of stuff. It's like, what was that time like for you through agency in your growth, one, but two, just like, how did you feel about it? What was it like?
It was interesting going from working for myself to working for an agency. Like I worked fine, and I have no issues of people kind of telling me what to do and stuff.
Yeah.
Growth wise, I worked with some pretty amazing brands. I also learned that there's these big brands, there's nothing special that they do. Like whatever they do, a creator can do and create content for themselves.
Yeah.
Like there's literally no like special trick or tactic or even equipment that these massive brands use to create their content. So I after realizing that, I'm like, oh cool, like I'm actually creating better content for myself than these brands. In my mind, you think about these huge brands and they probably have like 5 different videographers there and photographers and like makeup and costume and stuff like that. But nah, it's very cowboy, man. You just grab an iPhone, you need to find some talent, and then you just shoot some content.
Yeah.
That's it.
Why do you think that is in that world?
I think the agency I worked for mostly did TikTok content.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still prevalent, but I think when I was working for the agency, they felt TikTok was very authentic. Sorry, iPhone footage was very authentic to TikTok, so will blend in well for the brand. So that's why they use that. Yeah,
it's an interesting thing, Like, as we've grown our agency, definitely at the beginning of the process, like you could see it was a thing that people were doing. I think we caught on quite early. Sorry, I'm stuttering. That the camera didn't matter necessarily. Like the quality didn't matter on the platform unless it like helped tell a story better.
Yeah.
But then it quickly did shift where like quality became a real decision to make. Like it was really about like, what type of story am I telling now? Like, is it meant to be like a fly in the wall perspective or something like that, where the low quality made sense because it's the only way that camera could have ever been there. And then soon as it wasn't, soon as it was some form of production, I was like, no, well then now you need a real camera because the real camera tells the story in a better way. And I think that there was a bunch of agencies, and there still is a bunch of agencies who still try to push this narrative of like lo-fi, this is what people want.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you've seen a few lo-fi videos and think that's all there is on the platform, but it's not right.
Yeah, I think a lot of agencies do it because it's probably more efficient and it's more cost friendly. Than using proper camera gear. Because if you have proper camera gear, you need people who know how to use proper camera gear. So like costs increase there.
Exactly.
So rather than just paying someone just to pull out the iPhone and shoot some content. So it's a lot more cost friendly, and then they charge the brands probably the same price that they'd charge for premium content, and make money through there.
100%. It is definitely something we've seen as well. And like, look, we've probably been guilty for some of it somewhere as well, but like, it's definitely a narrative I push with clients now is, and actually like for people listening, like when you're doing branded content for people that don't just push, everything needs to be raw and authentic, because that's not true. Like,
exactly.
That's not true at all. And actually, like, the authentic thing is a real interesting conversation, because there's this big narrative being pushed for the last couple of years of like all content needs to be authentic on everywhere, and it's like Avatar just came out, that's not authentic, and it's like just a 2.6 billion at the box office.
Exactly.
Like, stories are stories.
Like you don't see these Hollywood films being shot on iPhones. It's like proper gear, and I think if content creators can apply that same concept to some extent, their content will do really well. But regardless of the camera gear, I think what's most important is engaging.
Exactly. The story's got to be there, right? You got to have a story. Okay, so interesting. So what do you think from that experience with the agency as a content creator? Did you take away, like, what are the stuff you kept and then you applied to now your life moving forward from that time? Like, what did you learn from that experience?
This is number one. I learned how to use an iPhone. I use that iPhone, sometimes.
That is so funny. I've never heard anyone the other way around. It's so crack up. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
I learned how to kind of deal with brands, especially on shoots. I guess before working there, maybe feedback is really important. Like when I create a piece of content for my Man Can Cook videos, I don't get much feedback. Like if I do, it's like one change. Can you add this? But when I was creating content for other brands, man, I get so much feedback, and it'd just be overwhelming. And then you start to think, shit, is this something to do with me? Am I not a good content creator? So I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learned, is that just understanding that when people give you feedback, it's like, it's not an attack on you, or it's not anything to do with you. It's just how they kind of want it, and just do it. Make the changes and get on with it.
That's real interesting, actually, to tap into that a little bit. Like the fact that getting feedback is real hard for a lot of people. Like, how do you continue that now? Like, how do you make sure you can get some feedback? Because like feedback, in my mind, is the greatest gift. Like we give. Everyone in our team gives feedback on each other and our own things, and it's what makes us better. Is that we're constantly critiquing. Like, sometimes I'm probably the most bluntest, I guess, in the team, and it's like, that's shit. And I'll just say words on there, but I probably shouldn't. But like, I think it does help, like, to get lots of feedback. How do you now what you've learned that, and you're out back on your own again doing content? Well, you've always been doing content on your own, but like, how do you create an environment for that now? Like, are you still getting feedback from people? Like, have you been able to create an environment where you can get feedback?
I mean, a lot of the brands I work with, the feedback would be pretty basic, and I'm totally happy to make the changes, especially when I'm not working for someone else to make the changes. Like I'm working for myself, and it's fine. Like I don't mind it. And if it's a big reshoot, then we'll negotiate reshoot costs and stuff like that. But otherwise, I guess the feedback or criticism is based on the other person's skill and capacity, and how long or where they stand. If it's someone with zero content creation skills, but a chef giving me feedback, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, like he's a proper chef, like I'll take that feedback on. Or if it's a content creator that's been creating content for years, and it's like, hey, you should shoot this way, or try and get these angles. Oh wow, he's like, he's been doing this for a long time, and he's got like standing, But if it's just someone with like zero cooking experience or zero content creating experience, just like trolling, you can you have to decipher it, and it's really important to take feedback where you should, for sure.
Absolutely.
Otherwise you can just get overwhelmed and
take it all with a grain of salt, especially if it's coming from randoms.
Exactly.
Especially coming from randoms. Like that sort of feedback, like unless it's like an overwhelming sentiment in the comments
Yeah.
that everyone's doing it, then maybe you need to listen to it. But like
Yeah.
randoms, like
I think feedback is great.
Yeah.
I think criticism's a little bit different.
yeah, exactly.
And like people are going to criticize you no matter what you do. Like, you criticize you for being too loud and they criticize you for being too quiet. So you
Yeah.
might as well just do what you want to do. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think it's important. I think it's important for like a lot of content creators who are out there on their own to find a way to get feedback from,
Yeah.
like you said, like from an actual chef or actual content creators and things, because I see a lot of fall off from creators
Yeah.
who then, it's because they can't adapt, and they can't adapt because they've got no trust circle to give them feedback.
Yeah.
And then they just stay in their lane, and then it doesn't work in time. And
Yeah.
then they don't have enough of a team around them to
Yeah.
give them that support and structure
Yeah.
to evolve. And content moves so fast that like you have to evolve and grow and develop with
Exactly.
it. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think something I'd like to establish is having people that I can get feedback from, because
Yeah.
I really don't. Like
Yeah.
I would like to send a video that I'm unsure on to someone and be like, hey, what do you think
Yeah.
about this?
Yeah.
So I think that's my plan this year. Is
Yeah.
but a lot of the other food creators out there are just very food focused,
Yeah.
and it's just the food.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess the content I create is just, a lot more theatrical. It's a lot more like
100%.
singing, dancing
Yeah.
type of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's hard to kind of get
Yeah.
feedback there. So, but I've learned the most by just putting content out there
Yeah.
and then seeing how it performs.
Yeah.
Like the biggest lesson I learned was I did a Kendrick Lamar video, like a song, and the one where he's like whap whap whap, and
Yeah.
something like that. But most of my music has been like 80s, 90s, so it was completely different.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is a catchy song. Like, I'll try it. And I tried it. I put it up for an hour, and I got like ridiculed in the comment section, and I took it down. And that was the biggest learning curve for me, because I was like, okay, that type of music is not my brand.
Yeah.
And after that, I was able to really narrow down and like, okay, this is the type of music that I'm going to focus on.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier now because I just have it narrowed down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What were some of the things, just out of interest, like just why did they not like it? Just because it's
because the lyrics,
or something?
Sexualized, the lyrics. And I didn't really pay attention to the lyrics. Like I was just like, oh, it's a catchy song.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was something different as well. So like I tried something different.
Yeah.
But I think it was too different. Yeah.
What is your audience demographic of, like, if you don't mind sharing? Like, what are the stats of who's watching your content?
Yeah, so it's mostly in the US, Australia, UK, and then there's New Zealand. And then I think like Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
Brazil is up there. And then age group is like 25 to like 35.
Yeah.
And then 35 to 45 around. So that's the biggest gap there. And it's surprising when I started, it was like 80% men, 20% women.
Yeah.
But now it's different. It's like, I think maybe 60 or 80% women and 20% men.
Yeah. Well, it's not surprising that that's what it is now, but I'm not surprised that you're mostly women now. Like, it makes sense. Like, so much of your brand is you and your looks and the way that you are, and like a man, like you said, a physically fit man cooking. That juxtaposition is like, like it's an attractive thing for the opposite sex. But at the beginning, it's quite surprising. But then I don't know a lot of the content at the beginning. How it was. But also, content's funny. Like, it gets gendered really quickly, really easily. Like a male content, it's going to attract a male audience straight away, just at first. But then once the content is like yours, like there will always be I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all that your content's mostly female.
I was quite shocked that usually demographics don't change like too much.
But
that was a massive shift. So
When did that shift happen though? Like, how big were you when did you start to see it shift, that follower count or viewership rise?
Yeah, so when I started, like my Instagram was just a personal Instagram, it was just like family, friends. So I probably had 1,000 followers.
Yeah.
And then when I started creating content, and then I think throughout maybe 2 years, we got to just over 300K.
Yeah.
And then within like 2 months, we got to 600K.
Yeah.
So that was a massive jump in 2 months. And I think after that jump, that's when things changed.
Yeah, I'm not surprised there. Honestly, I'm not surprised. Because like, once an algorithm finds the audience that actually wants it, then it just goes.
Yeah.
It takes off.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually surprised like that. It's interesting to see it, actually, to see someone who's like 180 flipped on the audience.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised with your content. Like, it is very like gendered content, I think, now, to target a female audience, like a millennial female audience.
Yeah, I guess like that's not my sole intention.
No, I know.
Intentionally,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of my videos you see me pulling out these books, you know,
Yeah.
5 Love Languages or Brene Brown.
Yeah.
And I guess for me the main message is my content is the shift on masculinity. Like, you know, masculinity to me is, you know, being able to cook and being kind and being loving, but also having a sense of vigor to yourself and being strong and fit. So I think I try and just incorporate all that into my content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a real interesting topic to talk about, because I don't think you're wrong. I actually 100% think you're right in your approach there. I just think we're at the early adopter stage of the the adoption curve, where there's only a small amount of men who agree with you.
Yeah.
And so because you're at the early adopter stage, the female audience wants that to be true.
Yeah.
Because it's a much more feminine skewed view of masculinity. And so like it attracts women to that approach. Like that's what we want men to be. We want men to be able to open up and express themselves and do all that stuff, because women do it so well. Well, I shouldn't say in general, in like a real general sense.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah.
So we're at the early adoptive stage. We're not at mass market.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and that's when that changes. And I don't think we're there anytime soon, to be honest.
Yeah,
I still think we're years away from that being like the norm for men. But that's why I don't think you should stop that approach. But I don't think you're going to get men mass market.
Yeah, for sure.
We're at least a decade away from that, maybe longer. I mean, the reason
that's not my sole message. I think
no, of course.
I guess most of that is just like I said at the start. Like I'm not afraid to be myself, and it's just part of me rather than trying to encourage other people to do that. It's just me showcasing myself.
And that's what I was going to say too. Like I like that approach as well. It's like how I kind of think about my brand is like I'm just offering a blueprint of one way of being a business owner or being a leader or being whatever. Like do what you want with it. Like I'm not everyone's cup of tea, you know, but this is who I am anyway. You can either choose to like it or not. Yeah. And you can follow it too. Like some people, like I try to show people what to do, but I also know that like even the leadership style and the business, the way I run a business is I'm still in the early adopter curve of the way that I do things. There are a lot of people like, you're crazy. Like, why would you go start a dating show, Stan? Like, that's so stupid. Like, why would anyone
I think it's
do
great.
that?
I love the dating show. Like, it's like the people blindfolded and stuff like that.
No, it's awesome. Yeah. And like some people get it.
Yeah.
They understand why it's done. But then other business owners like, wait, you spent $200,000 on that last year? That is fucking stupid. Why would you do that? But like, I don't care. I'm not trying to convince you to do it. I'm just trying to show here's a blueprint of something that worked. Yeah. And if you do it if you want. So I find that real interesting actually about you and your content is like, it is kind of cool brand, and I'm really interested to see how it grows over time. Yeah. And if you like, because you're not intentionally going, oh, I'm going to be on this crusade to make all men, you know, do this thing.
Nah, not at all.
That would be silly anyway. Like, you'd probably lose brand deals if you started to do that anyway. But it is an interesting thing to see how it evolves with men and how that culture shifts. I also like it, like Louis Davis with his stuff, how he's trying to go, I want to give you an alternative view of what brown men look like. And if you've never seen a brown man, I want you to think your first thought to be, he's a loving father. Yeah. You know, and this is how he is. Yeah, got love and respect for Louis Davis. He's a good dude. He's awesome. And and I love that push that he's doing. He's not trying to say all brown men need to be like this. Yeah. I just want to make sure there's an alternative perspective because we're not all the way we're shown in media, which is quite cool. So I really like your approach to it, his approach to it, and there's a few men around there who are trying to push it. Like Hawaii Kura is also, we know them quite well. There's Kylie they're from down in Nelson, and he's also trying to push a similar narrative that like you can be a dad and love your kids. Yeah, and I think all these creators are doing it authentically. They're not trying to push a narrative. They're just being authentic, and the narrative comes out naturally. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Tell me about where we're going. Like, what's the future? You're a full-time content creator. It's been 6 months now. Like, that must be pretty exciting, but also pretty nerve-wracking for you by the sounds of it. You're full out on your own. Like, what's the plans? What are you trying to do? Well, the goal this year is we want to try and crack 1 million. Okay, cool. By the end of the year. Yeah. So 1 million followers on Instagram. Yeah. We've got 1 million across multiple platforms. Yeah. But so that's the main goal this year. Yeah. And I think how we're going to achieve that is just through creating content, being consistent. Yeah. What content. For? Why 1 million? What's the number? Where did that number come from? Why is that? Yeah, good question. Yeah. Like it's more
it's not that like I want this following. It's more like a representative of how much hard work we put in.
Yeah.
When I say we, it's my dog and I.
Yeah.
So,
That was going to
Yeah.
be my next question actually. Who's we?
so
okay,
my dog, how much work we put in.
Yeah.
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 I think that's the main reason. It's like,
Yeah.
because we put a lot of work into our videos. It takes, on Monday, I have a concert by a Monday. I go and get the ingredients, maybe pre-bake it. Tuesday we film, and it takes 2 days to kind of film the content. Thursday we edit, and then Friday, we post.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much 5 day
Full working
job.
day.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
I mean that's the main reason why we want to crack a mill, is just to. I mean, we're really proud of ourselves, and I think it's more so like, okay, we've put in a lot of work. This is nice. It's a nice feeling. And if we don't crack a mill, like I'll still be proud of myself.
Of course.
Yeah.
Why Instagram? Why is that the metric? Why is
Yeah.
the 1 million on Instagram the metric?
I mean, that's where most of my brand deals come from.
Yeah.
And that's where I guess most of my following is.
Yeah.
So I guess closer to 1 million.
Yeah.
I don't. For me, like I'm not a big TikTok person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I post a lot. All my content goes on TikTok.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I just enjoy Instagram a bit more. It's a bit more polished than from my perspective, and I prefer like polished content. Yeah.
Yeah. And is the goal is the 1 million goal? Do you do that because it helps you negotiate bigger deals as well?
Yeah.
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 What does following count in today's world where 0 followers you can still get 10 million views on a video, and 1 million followers you can get 100,000 views on a video?
Yeah, I guess
like why is followers why does that still help with negotiation with brand deals and things?
I mean, I guess if a brand is more likely to have a bigger budget for a content creator with a bigger following, and I think if you do this as a career choice, it'll make sense to grow your career by growing your following.
Yeah.
And you could charge brands more throughout that. So I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think it's just like kind of like I've got more clout because I'm bigger, and that therefore they respect me more? And
I don't think it's about that. Like I think for me that's where ego comes into play, and I try not to have that.
Yeah.
I think it's more 1 million is more. It's like it's where I want to get to be not comfortable. I'm trying to find the right word. It's to showcase like the hard work that I put in, and then it's not just the content.
Yeah.
That's the hard work. It's like what's led me to create that content, the growth I've gone through to be able to create that content. So it's a lot more behind the scenes there as well. Yeah. And
so it's kind of just like the final metric piece of all the work that goes in.
Yeah, exactly.
That like this is just an objective measure I can use to showcase all the hard work that's happened, and that's really all it is about. That's cool. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Like I agree with the same thing. Like I think there's 2 reasons for why we go after followers too. One is because it showcases like there's still a big vanity thing for people to be like, well, those guys have got all these followers, and so it does a certain thing. But then also it does prove that your content's working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like,
and it's challenging because I have to adapt a lot. Like, people criticize me and be like, "Oh, your content's all the same. Like, your videos are the same." So, I mean, I take that into account. Okay, cool. Like, how can I change? And like sometimes I'm like, man, I'm running out of ideas. But then an idea just comes, and then like it's a slight change. But the thing with cooking, it's like the recipe is always going to be different. So there's always going to be a slight change to it. Yeah.
Okay, you grow your following, and you're just doing brand deals. Is that the business of Man That Cooks? Like.
Yeah, I mean, I've also got like a cookbook in the works.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and I have a fitness app.
I didn't know that. Yeah, okay.
I've got a fitness app, so there's a lot of these like little side things as well.
Yeah. They grow as well.
Yeah.
And is the is that the brand that you're trying to build, like sort of like personality public figure brand, and that becomes the whole business where you can then have products come off the side of that? Is that kind of the idea, or do you have future plans to like build some other empire or whatever it might be? Now that I know you've run a full-on gym and everything, like, or is it just build up my brand, get brand deals, use that to then like do adjacent products to sell alongside?
Yeah, I mean,
Or
So selling products is always an option. Like
Yeah.
I think for me, I've always wanted to like sell aprons because it's what I wear in my videos. But I find that it kind of takes my attention away. Like I've wanted to start up other little businesses, but it takes my attention away from what I get joy from. Like I experience a lot of joy from creating. Fraser enjoys it, my dog, and all these other little side businesses take my attention away from there, and it kind of gives you this like analysis paralysis. Like you just end up doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I've kind of learned to just focus on one or two things, and for me right now it's my content, my fitness app, and a cookbook I've got in the works. So those are the three main things I'm focusing on at the moment.
Cool. Love it. When do you expect the cookbook to be done?
Not for a while. It takes like a year
Cookbooks
to like shoot
long,
a cookbook. So
Yeah. Still a little while. Next year.
Yeah, next year for sure. Or by end of this year.
Oh yeah, cool. Okay, nice. And is the plan to like, do you have a publishing deal for it, or are you just going to self-publish and put it out?
I've got a publishing deal for
cool,
it.
nice.
In the works.
In the works. So working through that process.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. How did that come about?
Just to be honest, I think like I've been with an agent. I'm with an agent in New Zealand, but it's very exclusive. Whatever work they bring in, and whatever work I have is different. Yeah. But like brands will just email me, like book publishers will just email me. Like I'm very fortunate. Like I get these emails. Like I don't have to go searching a lot. Yeah. So I just received an email from a book publisher in the States that's who's published a few chefs that I follow and I admire. So I was like, oh, this is cool. So I just went along.
Can you tell us like a little bit about how that process is? Like, what is a book? You don't have to give me like specific numbers or anything like that, but like, what does a book deal look like for people who are in that space? Like, how's it structured?
So I think it's kind of like music. Like you get an advancement to spend time creating the book. Yeah. And then it's like a percentage of sales figures there as well. So the advancement's the biggest thing. Yeah. And like, without giving like, is there a range you can give an understanding of like, what does that advance look like for someone of your size? Like, I mean, it can be anywhere from like 50 to 80K. Yeah. Advanced. That's just an advancement. Yeah. And then you do get a little bit more afterwards. Yeah. And then it's like a percentage of the sales. Yeah. Yeah. And what does that percentage look like? Like, is that a bigger percentage? Is it quite a small one? Like, what does it look like? How does that structured? It's like not massive. Yeah. I think it's between
single digits, double digits.
Double digits.
Double digits. Yeah. More than half, less than half.
Less than half.
Less than half. Yeah. That's what I kind of thought. Yeah. So, but double digits though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Double digits, yeah.
And then from that point, like, what obligations do you have to from after making the book and giving it to a publisher? What obligations post book launch do you have?
Yeah, I mean, you have like a lot of PR stuff you gotta do as well. Yeah. Through content, through being there present, in probably the regions that you have the most following. So the US, for example, for myself. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to go and do that PR work, and they've like sort of contracted you. You need to go do this stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do they help
book promotions and
pay for that promotion piece, or is that on your dime as well that you've got to travel and do all of that?
They take care of it. That's all covered.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. That's quite cool. Well, that's quite cool for you too, because you get to go on a holiday to some of these places in the US as well. People are.
Yeah.
So that's quite cool.
Yeah, I enjoy the US. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then. So with the fitness app, is that just something you built yourself, or you got, and that it just runs on the side? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's basically like a fitness app, and it's more functional fitness stuff you can just do in the gym, like a regular global gym. Like you don't need barbells or like crazy equipment like that, and it's very basic stuff. Warm up, a strength piece, and then some conditioning, cool down, and that's it. And there's also about 150 recipes on there.
Oh yeah, cool, nice.
Yeah, but yeah.
And you just sell that as like a
subscription based.
Subscription based thing.
Yeah,
cool.
monthly subscription based, and
nice.
got quite a few people on it. Yeah. I don't put too much of my time into that. Yeah. But it does well. I think. Yeah. I think people see in my baking videos that he looks fit. Yeah. So it kind of translates to that. Yeah.
How many subscribers do you have roughly for it?
Not too many. We've got about just under 100.
Oh, yes. Still all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, but it's growing, and I think my plan this year is to try and push more fitness content up there. But I'm kind of torn between fitness content and then my food content. I think I think in New Zealand it's like 10-15% of people have a gym membership, whereas 100% of people got to eat. So
Yeah.
I'd rather just focus on the 100%
Yeah.
of people and put 10% in the fitness stuff. Yeah.
Would you do it as a separate channel?
I was thinking of that,
Yeah.
but man, like I don't want to spend more time on my phone.
Yeah.
I try to limit that, and I just didn't want to have another account.
Yeah.
Because I used to have a business account for my gym.
For the gym, yeah.
And I'd find that like I'd be scrolling through my account, and then I'd go to my business account and start scrolling there, and it's like all this time's passed, and I just
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you said before, focus is important. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that from a takeaway message from this conversation, I think having focus is super important for people.
Yeah.
I'm like notoriously bad for focus. Like I can focus in on things and I'm real good at it, but like I get too many ideas and try to do too many stuff. And as a build more of a team, I'm able to
but you have a
execute on
massive
that.
team. You can just like
Delegate it.
Yeah, delegate it for sure.
And like people then see me do all this stuff and be like, oh, I should do all that stuff. Stan's doing all this stuff too.
Yeah.
But actually, I just don't think that's the right way for most people, especially if you're on your own.
Yeah.
Just focus in on something, do it really fucking well.
Exactly.
And just build the one thing.
Yeah.
And you'll get other opportunities in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a good. It's like you've done that your whole. By the sounds of the stories we've gone along, it's what you've continuously done.
Yeah. Like everyone starts with 0 followers, man, and
Exactly.
you just gotta start.
Yeah.
Like if that's what you want.
Yeah.
If you want to create content and put yourself out there, like for me, starting's the hardest.
Yeah.
But once I get into the process of actually doing the baking and editing, it's like I find so much joy throughout it.
Yeah. No, I love it. Hey, it's going out to an hour. Connor's going to tell me off soon to get off this podcast. But hey, thanks so much for coming in. It was really
no
awesome.
worries. Thanks
It was
for
great
having
to
me,
hear your
man.
story and actually like to hear that little bit about self-development at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like was real interesting. Like I obviously didn't know that part of your story, but I think it's super inspiring, and I can tell that's why you've done so well because like, like your self-awareness is through the roof, but you can already see that. So that's fucking cool. So well done.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Cheers, bro.